Welcome to Tell Me More Stories Told This podcast. Get ready for a bit of an unexpected adventure today. We're diving deep into something you probably touch, I don't know, dozens of times a day, the door handle.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you probably don't give it a second thought. But trust us, there's a fascinating story locked away there.
There really is. It's one of those things, every time you open a door, you're interacting with this long history of, well, human ingenuity. As we looked into it, it just became so clear how much the door handle reflects, how we live, our technology, even what we find beautiful.
Okay, so let's kick this adventure off.
Right.
What is a door handle? Just fundamentally.
Well, basically, it's a handle you use to open or close a door. Simple as that, really. Sometimes called a doorknob, of course.
Right.
And you find them, well, everywhere. Building doors, inside, outside, cupboards, cars.
Sure.
And obviously, the designs vary a lot depending on what they're used for.
Yeah, like a tiny little knob on a bedside table is totally different from a big, heavy front door handle.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing many of these do more than just give you something to grab.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of them, especially for, say, front doors or places you want secure, they have latching or locking mechanisms built right in.
Right.
Or they're made specifically to fit standard locks that you buy separately. So yeah, they're often key to keeping things secure. That satisfying click.
Right, right. Okay, so let's maybe dig into the different types then. What are the common kinds of handles we'd bump into?
Probably the most common, especially in homes, maybe public buildings too, is the lever latch or just latch handle.
Okay.
That's the one with the little bar, the latch that clicks into the frame, keeps the door shut.
Yeah.
When you push the lever down, it turns this rod inside the door, the spindle,
Right.
and that pulls the latch back so you can open the door, usually for inside doors, rooms where you don't really need a lock.
Got it. Like bedroom to hallway, that kind of thing.
Basically.
Then there's the lever lock. Sounds, well, more secure.
It is, yeah. Looks pretty similar to the lever latch, but you'll see a keyhole usually right below the handle.
Ah,
That tells you it works with a more serious lock inside the door itself, what's called a mortice sash lock. So when it's unlocked, the handle works just like the lever latch, pulls the latch back. But when it's locked, you need the key to pull back a deadbolt. Much more secure.
right. That makes sense for a front door or maybe an office. Okay, what about bathroom doors? Privacy is key there, but you don't want someone locked in.
Good point. That's where the lever bathroom handle comes in. It usually has a little turn button, a snib, they call it, on the inside.
Yeah, the little turny thing.
Right. Lets you lock it from the inside. But crucially, there's an emergency release on the outside, like a little slot you can turn with a coin or something.
Oh, smart. For emergencies.
Exactly. And these are fitted with that mortise sash lock, but the snib connects using a thinner 5mm spindle, usually.
Okay, interesting detail. So a balance of privacy and safety.
Yeah.
And you mentioned lever privacy too. How's that different?
Similar idea, lock from inside, emergency release outside, but the mechanism is different. Instead of working a separate bolt in a mortise lock, it actually jams the lever itself, stops it from moving, so the latch can't be pulled back. No separate bolt needed.
Huh. So it just stops the handle working. Clever.
Yeah, a bit more direct.
Okay, and then we see those really simple ones, often kind of U-shaped.
Pull handles. Yeah, very common, especially in kitchens, on cupboards and drawers. Often stainless steel, just simple, sturdy.
Right. Okay, so that covers a lot of what we see now. But you mentioned this history. These things go back way further than I imagine.
Oh, way further. We're talking at least 5,000 years. Back to the Neolithic period.
5,000. Seriously.
Yep. And locking mechanisms are almost as old. That basic need to secure your space, it's ancient.
Wow. So what did the very first ones look like? Were they like rocks tied to doors?
Maybe not quite. But think about ancient Egypt. They had key-operated locks, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the keys, well, they could be massive, like nearly 2 feet long.
Get out. 2 feet.
Yeah. And here's the kicker. These enormous keys often doubled as the door handle. You'd use this giant thing to unlock and pull the door open.
No way. Imagine carrying that around. That wasn't a keychain. That was like a piece of furniture.
Exactly. Puts our little house keys in perspective, doesn't it?
Totally. Okay, so Egypt had handle keys. What about, say, the Romans?
Well, Roman homes sometimes had lockable doors, though maybe not as universally as we do. Often security was simpler, like internal sliding bolts or big heavy bars. Sometimes the brackets holding those bars might have served as a basic grip.
Okay.
But what's really cool is excavations at Lake Nemi from the 1st century CE found interior doors that look surprisingly modern. They actually had knob-shaped handles.
Really? Like actual round knobs?
Pretty much. It's kind of wild to think something so familiar has roots that deep.
That is wild. And elsewhere. China, maybe?
Yeah, China, by the 4th century CE, had some pretty advanced stuff. Automated doors, complex locks, clever door bars. But after the Roman Empire, in Europe, things get a bit hazy for a while, handle-wise. Up until about 1000 CE, the records are a bit spotty.
A bit of a dark age for door handles then.
Sort of, yeah, but we do have some amazing early medieval examples that survived.
Like what?
Well, the Bernward doors in Germany, early 11th century, they have these big decorative bronze ring handles, very grand.
Okay, I can picture that.
And the old door at Westminster Abbey in London, it has this simple sliding bolt that you also use as the handle to slide it. Very practical.
Smart. Killing two birds with one stone. So moving into the later Middle Ages,
Yeah.
what were people using then? Were blacksmiths getting involved?
Absolutely. Blacksmiths were key. They made metal drop latches, the kind that pivots. And the handle was often just a ring or a metal strip attached to that. Because metalworking was the main skill, you didn't see as many fancy carved wooden knobs initially. But they did have simpler wooden latches, sometimes just a hole to stick your finger through to lift the latch.
Basic, but it works.
Or they'd have a string going through the door to lift the latch. You could pull the string inside to lock it.
Clever. Low-tech security.
Right. And maybe a basic wooden handle just to pull the door shut.
So really practical stuff based on what materials and skills they had. Seems like metalwork really took over, though.
It did, yeah. By the mid-1600s, you start seeing forged vertical handles, like metal brackets fixed to the door.
Okay.
And that led to things like the Suffolk latch, where the thumb press part of the latch is built right into the handle.
Integrating it.
Exactly. Then, by the mid-1700s, casting iron got better, so you get cast handles like the Norfolk latch, replacing some of the forged ones.
Following the technology.
Yeah.
And when did the twisty knobs really come into play?
That started earlier, around the early 17th century, too. Metalworking got better, allowing for more complex locks inside the door, mortice locks, rim locks, and these often needed a twisting motion to work. So boom, that leads directly to designing knobs you could twist, often quite decorative ones too.
So the lock mechanism itself drove the handle design. Makes sense.
Totally.
And then the Industrial Revolution must have changed everything.
Oh, massively. Suddenly, you could mass produce locks and latches much cheaper.
Right.
And you got this huge competition between lock designers, Barron, Chubb, Brahma, all these names trying to make better, cheaper locks. So from the 18th century on, you just see this explosion of different handle styles, levers, knobs, all sorts, driven by fashion, by new manufacturing methods. Materials expanded too, cast metals, turned metals, spun metals. Handles got more intricate, often with those decorative backplates, roses, or escutcheons.
It sounds like Europe was really leading the charge for a long time.
Yeah, for a good while. Until maybe 1830 or so, most manufacturing was happening in Europe, but then the U.S. really jumped in. Between 1830 and 1876, the Centennial Exposition was a big marker. There was this incredible burst of innovation. Over 100 patents for door handles in the U.S. alone.
Wow. Playing catch-up and then some.
Exactly. And that's when glass doorknobs really became a thing, too. Pressed glass made them easier to produce. Fancy cut glass knobs were super fashionable for a while.
Glass doorknobs. They sound beautiful, but maybe a bit fragile.
Maybe a bit, yeah, compared to solid metal.
Yeah.
But definitely stylish. And that leads into the 20th century, where architects and designers really started seeing handles as part of the whole interior design concept.
Right, not just a functional bit.
Not at all. You get people like Wittgenstein designing that classic curved tube handle still made today.
Oh yeah, another one.
And Behrens, Gropius, Gaudi, all these big names creating really distinct, sometimes iconic handle designs.
So the handle becomes a design statement.
Precisely. And that continues. But in the 21st century, other things became really important too, like infection control and accessibility.
Yeah. Especially recently.
Definitely. The pandemic really pushed the development of things like foot-operated handles or ones you use your forearm on, trying to minimize hand contact.
It's amazing how it keeps evolving, even now, responding to new needs. Midpoint. We've really opened the door on some amazing history here, haven't we?
Ah, nice one.
If you're enjoying hearing the stories behind these everyday things, seriously, don't keep us a secret. Hit that subscribe button right now. That way you won't miss any more of our deep dives here on Tell Me More Stories Told This podcast. We've got lots more surprises waiting.
Okay, so picking back up, let's talk about some of the other bits and pieces you see with handles, like escutcheon plates. We mentioned them briefly.
Scutcheon plates.
Yeah.
Now, I know the word. They're the plates behind the handle, right? Are they
Yeah.
just decorative?
They can be very decorative, for sure, but they have practical jobs, too. They're also called back plates. They protect the door surface, from getting scratched up by the handle or keys.
Ah,
They hide the screws and stuff that hold the handle on, makes it look neater and maybe a bit more secure.
right.
They can cover up if the hole cut in the door is a bit rough around the edges. And yeah, they definitely add to the look.
Okay, so practical and pretty. Got it. What about the little metal plate on the edge of the door where the latch comes out? And the one on the frame?
Right, important bits too. The one on the edge of the door itself is the faceplate.
Faceplate, okay.
And the one on the door jamb, the frame, where the latch goes into, that's the latch plate or sometimes strike plate.
Latch plate.
Yeah, and it's usually shaped to guide the latch in, and it reinforces that hole, makes the whole thing stronger when the door's closed.
Okay, good to know the names.
Yeah.
Now, thinking about where the handle goes on the door, it seems pretty standard, but is there a variation, like culturally?
There are, subtle ones. Horizontally, how far in from the edge the handle is, that's called the back set.
Back set.
That can vary a bit depending on where you are, the style of the house, maybe just what people prefer. But vertically, how high up it is, that's usually more consistent. Typically somewhere between, say, 34 and 48 inches off the floor, about 860 to 1220 millimeters.
To suit most people, I guess.
Exactly, for accessibility, which links back to what we said about knobs versus levers.
Right, that knobs can be tricky for some people.
Yeah, kids, older folks, people with arthritis. That twisting grip isn't always easy. That's a big reason why levers are so common now in public buildings and even in homes. They're just easier to use for more people.
And better for really skinny doors, too, maybe.
Good point. If the door style, that vertical part is really narrow, there might not be much room to comfortably grab and turn a knob. A lever often fits better.
Practicality again. Okay, so inside the door, how does it actually work? How do the two handles connect?
Most of the time, for interior doors anyway, it's pretty simple. There's a metal rod, the spindle, usually square or maybe spline.
Uh-huh.
It goes through a hole in the door, sometimes called the door jigger, just kind of informally.
Jigger, okay.
The spindle sticks out both sides, and the handles slide onto those ends and get fixed, usually with little set screws, or sometimes they clip on. So when you turn the knob or push the lever...
You turn the spindle.
Right. And that turns the mechanism inside that pulls the latch back from the frame. Simple mechanical link.
Okay. And you mentioned different types based on function, too.
Yeah, like household handles fall into a few groups. Entrance handles for outside doors always have a key lock, right?
Sure.
Privacy handles for bedrooms, bathrooms, they lock from the inside, maybe have that emergency release, but no key.
Right, the little button or turn.
Passage handles for hallways, closets, no lock at all, just open and close.
Okay.
And then dummy handles, they don't do anything, they're just for looks. Like on closet doors that use a ball catch to stay shut, they just match the other handles.
Huh. Dummy handles. So it's all about the function. Interesting. Now, we've mostly talked building doors. What about cars? They have handles too, obviously.
They do. And car handles have evolved too. You see the classic ones that stick out?
Yeah.
And now more streamlined ones that sit flush with the car body for better aerodynamics. And in luxury cars, increasingly, you get keyless entry. Keypads, thumb scans, face recognition even. Sometimes the traditional handle is barely there or gone completely.
Wild. Technology just keeps changing things.
Yeah.
I was really curious about those foldable handles you mentioned. That's unusual.
Yeah, they're quite specific. You mostly find them on balcony doors that have shutters on the outside.
Great. Why foldable?
Well, the handle part you grip, often a ring, it's hinged, so you can fold it flat against the door.
So the shutter can close flat against the door.
Exactly. If the handle stuck out, the shutter wouldn't close properly. It's a neat solution. And apparently they pop up in films sometimes, like Interstellar or Dolphin Tale, kind of signifying a certain type of house or place.
Huh. That's a cool little detail. And pocket doors, the ones that slide into the wall.
Yeah.
They must need special handles, too.
They do. Pocket door handles have to be flush, right? So they're usually recessed into the door, like a little rectangular indent with a lip or a ring you can use to pull the door out.
Makes sense. Otherwise, it wouldn't slide all the way in.
Right. Can't have anything sticking out.
So beyond those, Any other weird or wonderful handle types emerging?
Well, we're seeing more flush mount ones operated just by touch, electronic ones, motion sensor handles,
Hmm.
a lot driven by PEC, convenience, and again, hygiene.
Which brings us back to infection control. That's become such a big
That's
deal.
huge. And yet, door handles are classic high-touch surfaces. You touch a handle, then your face.
Huh?
Bingo, potential infection spread.
Yeah, we're all super aware of that now.
But what's really fascinating is that some handle materials actually fight back.
How so?
Certain metals, like brass, copper, even silver, have what's called an oligodynamic effect. They're basically slowly poisonous to microbes. Yeah. Brass and copper, for instance, can actually disinfect themselves of a lot of common germs within about 8 hours or so.
Wow, so the handle cleans itself, in a way.
Kind of, yeah. It's a natural property of the metal.
That's amazing. Why aren't all handles made of brass then?
Well, cost is one factor, and aesthetics. Plus, other common materials like stainless steel, glass, aluminum, porcelain, they don't have that effect at all.
I see.
But this knowledge has definitely renewed interest in copper alloys for hardware, especially in places like hospitals. And it's also why you see those arm or foot pulls being developed to avoid hand contact altogether.
Incredible. The material itself matters that much. It seems like people really do get passionate about these things, though. You mentioned collectors.
Oh, absolutely. There's actually an organization called the Antique Doorknob Collectors of America, the ADCA.
No kidding.
Yep, founded back in '81, a nonprofit for people who study and appreciate old door hardware. Had over 1,000 members a few years back.
Wow, that's a dedicated following.
It is. Apparently, a book called The Antique Doorknob by Maud Eastwood in 1976 really helped kickstart the hobby, making people realize the history and artistry in these everyday objects.
That's brilliant. It just shows, doesn't it? Even something totally ordinary can have this incredibly rich story behind it.
It really does. And maybe, next time you grab a handle, you'll see it a little differently. Think about the journey it's been on.
So the next time you reach for a door handle, yeah, remember its long and varied history, all the cleverness that went into its design, maybe even its hidden role in keeping us healthy. It really is much more than just a way to open a door. It's like a tiny piece of human history right there in your hand. Makes you wonder, what other overlooked things around us have these amazing stories? What everyday item will you look at differently now? Definitely something to think about. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of door handles on Tell Me More Stories, told as podcast.